Welcome to sunny Phoenix, Arizona, a city known for its stunning deserts and vibrant culture. But if you're thinking about buying a house here, you might want to pause and reconsider. In today's video, we're going to do a deep dive in the Phoenix housing market and identify which houses are not worth buying in today's market and which opportunities might lie for any potential people who are out there still trying to buy a house. So first, let's identify what's wrong with the current housing market. Right now, our monthly median sales price is about $440,000 for the entire, basically, city. As you can tell, starting May 2020 and ending May 2022, that 2-year period created a massive boost of values artificially, might I add, because interest rates are so freaking low and there's all of these buyers coming into the market, whether they're out-of-state buyers, foreign investors, or even just these corporate investors that are buying up a bunch of rental properties. Now, there was a slight correction and people definitely thought we were crashing here, but ended up coming back to life, and now we're kind of just fixated around that $440,000 range. Now, $440,000 isn't that bad if you really think about it. With $20,000 down, your monthly payment for your principal and interest is only about $22.55, and once you add like insurance and taxes, which are pretty low here in Phoenix, we're maybe around $2,500. That seems very doable, and for most people, after 30 years, they're only paying $391,000 in interest, so it's very doable for them to be able to not only to safely afford it, but be able to make extra payments, say an additional $500 a month, and be able to really pay that off a lot quicker. But here's a problem. Interest rates are not 5%. Interest rates are 7%. And what that does is two things. One, it makes it absolutely a scam to buy because you're paying $585,000 of interest within 30 years. Your monthly payment is definitely now, once you add everything, above the $3,000 range, which makes it completely unaffordable. And the worst part is literally your first payment is like 88% going through the interest. So you're put up in a position where the majority of your loan is paying your interest. And literally for a $420,000 loan amount, you're paying $1 million after 30 years for a 7% interest rate. How insane is that? That's crazy, right? So what's really wrong right now with the market is, I wouldn't even call it the prices. The prices are definitely contributing to it, but it's the interest rates. The interest rates being so freaking high are making it completely unaffordable for people. Now, if the rates were a lot more manageable and the prices were to slightly adjust, first-time home buyers would be having a lot easier time buying a house. So once $440,000 was somewhat affordable, nowadays, the monthly payment looks about like this. You're paying about $3,290 or about $3,300. Now let's break down how this works for you to qualify and how it works for people to afford this monthly payment. So when you qualify for a house, a lender is going to use your gross monthly income. So if you're making about $100,000 a year, that's roughly, give or take, $8,333. And this is your gross, before taxes, before everything. If we get about 45% of that, you get $3,750. And basically, this is what you would qualify for if you were to talk to a lender today. Now, of course, if from here, they would remove any payments you have, like your credit card payments or car payments. But in this case, let's assume you have $400 worth of credit card payments. You have no car payment. So you would qualify for about $3,350. So by all means, you would be able to qualify for a house for $440,000. But what could you safely afford? If we work our way back to that gross monthly income number of $8,333, we can actually figure out what would that net income, because when you're looking at your budget, you should be basing it off your net income, what you actually are bringing home, not what's being brought on paper. So let's just assume that 75% of that is actually your take-home income. So really, you're bringing home about $62.49. Now, according to the laws of budgeting, you want to be between 20 to 30% of your net income to not be house poor. So if we really push it and go to 30%, that means your monthly payment should not exceed $1,874 in order for you to not be house poor. That means that lender will qualify you for this $440,000 price range, even though it will make you house poor. In order for you to not be house poor, we can work our way backward and find out, okay, well, if I need to be making $3,300, that's going to be 30% of my net income. That means that you actually need to be bringing home or netting $11,000 in order for you to be safely, comfortably affording that. And if we work our way back further by dividing it by 0.75, your gross income needs to be about $14,660 a month, meaning you need to be making at least $176K to safely afford your monthly payment or right now the way things are. Now, you can see how this is completely crazy. If you're making that much, good for you, but not a lot of people are in that position. So now that we understand why it sucks, let's look into the actual data and see what's going on with the housing market. So here we have the MLS. And now, as much as you guys don't like realtors, we have access to the data. We have access to the MLS, so that's the one thing of value we can at least bring. And right now, what I'm doing to a lot of my clients is I'm just doing this for them. I'm doing research and data for them. And I'm hoping down the road when they do buy, they'll reach out to me. But anyways, right now, we have approximately 6,411 listings and coming soon. This is definitely a pretty big increase. We can see here, there's a pretty massive increase happening here. Now, this number doesn't include, I believe, the coming soons, but you can see that it's definitely rising sharply. Now, one thing to note here is that this top point, well, actually, let's go back a little more. Can we go back? As you can see here, the pink line is our active inventory. That is steadily rising up, and that's going up. Now, you may think, well, Javier, it's nowhere near where it was in 2022. But here's the thing that you really need to know. This right here was absolute craziness. If we compare what happened by going to, let's say, the average sales price, okay, for the whole city, we can see there is a massive drop of value here. Let's figure out some things here, okay? 2020 and 2021, when houses were going up in value like crazy, there was a lot of houses going under contract, about 10,000 going under contract. And if we compare it to the active listing numbers, let's remove 2022 and 2023, our inventory numbers were low. Here's the beginning of 2020 when everything really started to go crazy. And we can see our inventory numbers were in the 5,000s. They were super low, and our pending numbers were super high. This created massive increase of value. Now, 2022 was very interesting because we started seeing our active inventory count in the middle of the year just absolutely go high. It went from 5,000 active listings to about 17,000 active listings. And what we saw with the under contract numbers is they were going from up here to steadily down, right? To like middle of the year, they were like below 10,000. So that created this effect of the prices completely dropping. So now let's go back to 2023 and we can really put in perspective what's going on here. Our inventory count is going back up and not as high as it was in 2022. Yes, we can add 2022 here to see, yeah, we're not as quite as high as we need to. But if we look at our under contract numbers compared to 2022, we're about there, right? So as inventory begins to increase even further, we're going to get put in that position where those prices should start dropping. But why haven't they been? Why haven't they been dropping? Well, let's get a good idea of what's going on here, ladies and gentlemen, because before we start freaking out and put our pitchforks out, let's see what's happening. So right now there's 15,853 houses that are going for sale. If we look at what's under contract and pending, which gives us the best indication of what's being bought right now, there's 6,204. So there is, was that 3 months worth of inventory around there? Meaning if there was no more, if the same rate of sale happened and there was no more inventory, it would take about 2 to 3 months, more closer to 3 months for all the inventory to get sold. If we compare that to our close number, it should be relatively the same, but it should be less by like 5,000, 4,806. Yeah, it's closer to that 3 month mark, right? So the thing that people need to understand is the market doesn't just absolutely start tanking right away. Okay, things take time. Houses need to stay on the market for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months before prices start getting decreased at a high level. And right now, what we're seeing is all these houses are staying longer on the market. Let me just pick a random city here, Goodyear. Okay, so there's 410 houses for sale right now. Out of the 410 houses, let's see, how many of them have over 30 days in the market? 267 of them, so definitely more than half. How many of them have had more than 2 months in the market? 161 of them. How many have had over 3 months on the market? 100 of them, right? About a quarter. So we're still in that period where, you know, people, it takes like 4 to 6 months for people to start really reducing those prices harshly. So we're in that period where there hasn't been any massive movements yet because it takes time for these things to happen. And here's my opinion about what could potentially happen. If everything stays the way it is right now and there is no massive boom of home buyers coming out of the woodworks come the beginning of the year, we're definitely going to start seeing those price reductions start heavily dropping in the beginning of the year. And what's going to happen is that inventory count's going to go above, the under contract's going to stay nice and low, and we're going to start seeing those price reductions just because, I mean, in history, this is what we've seen. There will start being a bunch of them. But my concern is the following, okay? Because last time we got an indication that the housing market was crashing. Look what happened. People started jumping into the market again, and it completely offset anything that happened. So if it happens again and it starts dropping, like there's so many people that are tuned into the market. As soon as they start seeing massive price reductions, that's when people jump in. And it's a different time than it was in 2008. We can go back here. During this time, people were watching like Fox News and stuff, right? They weren't like online daily, like looking at all these housing doomers talking about the housing market crashing. People are clocked in and they're locked in now, right? And if there is a price reduction amount and it starts going to like, let's say even halfway here to this point, there's going to be so much people jumping ship into the market again that it's going to potentially make those things go up. The second thing that could potentially happen is as the prices start dropping, the government can intervene and say, hey, let's kick those rates back down again. And that's going to make people hop back in. So it being a massive crash where people just completely lose their marbles, I'm not sure I see that happening again, especially because banks are working with sellers to not get rid of them. And the main difference here is that most of the sellers that bought a house during this period bought some kind of weird loan. Most of our current sellers that bought over the last 3 or 4 years, only like maybe the last few months of people are the ones that are in a little rough situation. But like everyone else bought with a really low rate and they're not going to sell their house for anything. So who's going to really foreclose except the people that just bought just recently, or they're just really weird situations. So my first prediction obviously is if nothing changes, things start dropping. That's like they do. And there's probably going to be some intervention here at this point, either from the news or just people seeing that prices are crashing and they're jumping back in, and rates are going to drop again, and it's going to kind of slowly kick back up here. This wouldn't be that bad if when it does kick back up, it like doesn't go as sharply high. It just kind of steadily gets better. The second thing is it just completely just crashed and it just goes straight to the floor. Like it goes even like we see here, the monthly sales price doesn't really show you, but if I go to the median sales price, I can go as back as 2005, I think. Yeah, 2005, 6, 7. Let's add all those numbers here. We can see here when it dropped lower than what it was before. We could potentially see it drop even lower than it was before. But the thing is, if this happens, then it has to be like no intervention whatsoever. Like it just starts dropping massively and no one decides to start buying like halfway through. No interest rates get adjusted halfway through, and it just completely just goes on a crazy fall. And if you think that's the route we're going, then that's the route we're going. But I like to have a little more hope. There's a lot of growth happening right now in Phoenix, and I just don't see that massive drop happening. But one thing I can tell you, things are unstable. Things are definitely weird. There's a lot of people in the sidelines right now waiting for either prices to drop or interest rates to drop. So is it a good time to buy right now? Honestly, if you're looking for a standard resale, just a basic like cookie cutter home or just a standard house, maybe not. That 7 to 8% interest does feel like a little bit of a ripoff, and it does feel like you're gonna pay so much more money in interest to the bank that it just doesn't feel good, right? So that eliminates the majority of people. This is not going to be a market for the majority of the first-time home buyers to hop in, unfortunately. Where it does make sense for potentially is right now new builders. They just started building so much houses over the last 6 months that they don't know what to do with the inventory. So there's a lot of like opportunities right now with new builders where they have like this inventory homes that are closing, like that are already done being built and they can't sell them. So they give these incentives of like an interest rate buy down to 5% or 5.5%. So you can buy a brand new house with an interest rate of about 5 to 6% and get closing costs paid. Now that's insane to me because people are waiting for rates to drop to 5%. You could potentially get that now. So it makes sense to do that, or it makes sense if you're buying like a super niche. Someone made fun of me for saying this the wrong way the other day. Niche house, like a horse property or something in this specific neighborhood that you love. Like I live in Litchfield Park myself, so like it's like super hard to get in the area. So I understand maybe if you like just go for it, but if you're going that route, probably either way You want to make sure your budget's solid. You want to make sure your qualification is solid, but you also want to make sure that you do some local market knowledge. Because like if I show you market stats of Goodyear, that price is actually going up. They're not just flatlining, they're going up. There's certain areas that are just improving and booming right now, and for other outside reasons. So whatever the route is, make sure you do your local market knowledge. Now, this is the part where I shamelessly promote myself. If you're looking for someone to do a housing market kind of breakdown in your specific zip code or city where you're looking to buy in, or you want a custom list of houses of new builder inventory houses that have these really low incentives, there's all kinds of good links below. There's a home builder link, or there's like my email, my cell phone number. Just text or call me, and I can definitely start helping you. But either way, it's not all bad. There's definitely going to be some rough waters up ahead. But as long as we all stay calm and we don't go buy a needlessly excessive house that you cannot afford, everyone should be okay. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. I'll talk to you soon.